والمعوقات، بالإضافة إلى رفع مستوى الأمن والسلامة ومكافحة الحريق في جميع المنشآت الحيوية، وتحقيق أعلى درجات الكفاءة الممكنة من حيث ساعات العمل بدون حوادث مقعدة. ومن أهم أهدافها تنفيذ قرارات مجلس الهيئة وتقديم تقارير دورية وسنوية عن أوضاع الأمن والسلامة الصناعية في جميع المنشآت البترولية والصناعية، بالإضافة إلى التنسيق بين المنشآت الحيوية والجهات الأمنية ووضع التعليمات الفنية والهندسية والتنظيمية والإجرائية الخاصة بمتطلبات الأمن والسلامة والحماية من الحريق في جميع المنشآت الحيوية الخاضعة لإشراف الهيئة، وتطبيق الضوابط والاشتراطات الأمنية، ووضع أسس تأهيل رجال الأمن الصناعي، وتحديث بيانات التدريب، وعقد الدورات التدريبية، ودراسة المشروعات الأمنية، والعمل على توحيد المستوى الأمني عن طريق تطبيق التعليمات، والتأكد من التزام المنشآت بتطبيق ضوابط نقل ومناولة المواد الخطرة، ووضع الأسس اللازمة لخطط الطوارئ والإخلاء ومواسم الحج، وتحديث تصنيف المنشآت، وتهيئة الكوادر البشرية في الأمانة لتكوين خبرة سعودية متخصصة في مجال الأمن الصناعي. وأشير في هذا المقام إلى ما أشار إليه زميلنا المهندس طارق الجين حول مؤتمر ومعرض الأمن الصناعي الذي يقام في كل عام برعاية كريمة من صاحب السمو الملكي رئيس الهيئة، وبإشراف ومتابعة من قبل الأمانة العامة. أيها الأخوة والأخوات، أن الهدف الأساسي من الأمن الصناعي هو التأكد من استمرارية الإنتاج تحت كل الظروف في أي منشأة يعتبر توقف الإنتاج فيها غير مقبول من ناحية المصلحة الوطنية، وأن إعاقته تنحصر في حدود تكون مقبولة بالنسبة لهذه المصلحة. ومن هذا المنطلق فإن متابعة مستجداته من كل النواحي يعتبر جزء مهما من مهام مسؤوليه، وعلى رأسهم صاحب السمو الملكي الوزير الداخلية رئيس الهيئة العليا للأمن الصناعي الأمير محمد بن نايف بن عبد العزيز والمشرفين على الأمن الصناعي. ولذا فإن هؤلاء يبذلون الغالي والنفيس من وقتهم وصحتهم وجهدهم في التعرف على أحدث الوسائل والطرائق التي تحقق هذا الهدف وترقى إليه. ومن هنا استشعرت الهيئة العليا للأمن الصناعي مسؤولياتها في إيصال المعلومة الصحيحة والحديثة لكل فرد منتسب للأمن الصناعي في أي منشأة حيوية، وذلك من خلال التوعية الجيدة والحرص وبذل الجهد المتناهي للوصول إلى أرقى ما وصل إليه العالم في هذا المجال، ليتواكب ذلك كله مع ما تشهده المملكة العربية السعودية من تطور ونمو اقتصادي وصناعي وخدماتي، وما تتبوأه من مركز عالمي في كل المجالات. ولقد يسر الله لهذا رجالا صدقوا ما عاهدوا الله عليه من ولاة الأمر المسؤولين عن الهيئة والمباشرين لأعمال الأمانة، فأصبح الهدف الجميع تحقيق التميز والوصول إلى أعلى درجات السلامة والأمن في تكامل وتمازج بين المسؤول والمشرف والمباشر للعمل والقائم عليه. جعلوا نصب أعينهم حفظ مقومات هذا البلد ومقدراتها، معتمدين في ذلك على الله أولا، ثم على البيئة الصالحة والعمل الجاد والجهد المثمر والتعاون البناء في سبيل إيجاد كيان مترابط يعززه التلاحم وتحفظه بحفظ الله المهج والأرواح. ولتحقيق ذلك تسير الهيئة على خطة طموحة تهدف إلى تحقيق ما يسعى إليه ولاة الأمر حفظهم الله، وذلك من خلال البدء من حيث انتهى منه الآخرون، الحرص على تأهيل العاملين، تعزيز الروابط بين المنشآت والهيئة العليا للأمن الصناعي، وإيجاد الخطط البديلة لمواجهة الواقع ومعالجة آثاره، والانتقال إلى التعامل الإلكتروني. وأخيراً، فإننا يجب أن نعتمد على الله أولاً، ثم على تأهيل العاملين ورفع كفاءتهم، ثم على الاستفادة من الدروس السابقة وكيف تم معالجتها لنبدع في معالجة أخطائنا، ثم على التدريب، ثم على التأكيد أن الأمانة والمنشأة في خندق واحد، هدفنا الرقي ببلادنا وحفظ مقدراتها والحفاظ على بنيتها ومنشآتها. أيها الأخوة، ختاماً اسمحوا لي أن أرفع باسم منسوبي الأمن الصناعي في المملكة العربية السعودية جميعاً الشكر والامتنان والإجلال لسيدي صاحب السمو الملكي الأمير محمد بن نايف بن عبد العزيز وزير الداخلية رئيس الهيئة العليا للأمن الصناعي على ما يلقاه الأمن الصناعي في المملكة ومنسوبوه من دعم وتشجيع، وعلى ما يلقاه الأمن الصناعي في منشآتنا الحيوية من متابعة ورعاية واهتمام. كما أكرر شكري الجزيل على تشريفكم ومشاركتكم، وأشكر كل من أسهم في الإعداد والترتيب لهذا الملتقى وما يصاحبه من فعاليات. كما أشكر وسائل الإعلام على تغطيتها واهتمامها، وأسأل الله للجميع التوفيق والسداد، والله من وراء القصد. والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. جيد. الأخوان مضايقين من الوقت، لكن عندنا الآن إن شاء الله إضافة من أحد الخبراء الأستاذ المهندس منصور مالك، سوف يتكلم عن بعض المشاريع التي سوف تطرحها الهيئة الأمن الصناعي، ولضيق الوقت ربما يكون التركيز على التعليمات والمواصفات التي تتبعها الهيئة العليا للأمن الصناعي لتنفيذ أعمالها ولتوحيد المستوى الأمني في جميع المنشآت. منصور.
Assalamu alaikum. As Dr. Khalid said, my name is Mansoor Malik. I'm a security consultant with the High Commission for Industrial Security. And I'm sure you're all ready for dinner, so I'll get started quickly. How does this work? My presentation is a short overview of the security regulations and the safety regulations for the High Commission for Industrial Security. I'm going to give you a brief background and then I'll get right into them. As Dr. Khalid told you, the High Commission for Industrial Security was established in 1977. First security regulations were introduced in 1982, which is what, 20, 30 years ago? And the problem with these regulations, they were fine for the time, they did the job, but times have changed. And HCIS determined that they needed a new set. Now, this is what the original regulations were structured as. They're called the SSDs, or Safety and Security Directives. If you've been working in the security industry in Saudi Arabia, you're well familiar with them, and you've heard a lot about them. This is how they were structured. To give you an example, this is the entire gamut or range of security and safety regulations. But it was a little, they were developed ad hoc in the sense that they are mixed between safety, security, and safety. For example, if you wanted to look at fences, you could go to any of these regulations to find the details on the fencing. If you wanted to look at gatehouses, you went to a different set. And the problem was HCIS determined they wanted a better method of helping the industry. HCIS decided to develop new regulations based on performance and standards, international standards, specify minimum performance levels. That was the key. They had to be something that could be developed and used internationally. So from this old structure, this is the new structure of the security regulations and the safety regulations. They were released on May 6, 2010. And as you can see, they're quite structured. Each regulation stands on its own. And I'm going to go briefly into an overview of this. I'm not trying to make you an expert or go into the great details, just give you an overview so you understand the complexity of these regulations. I'm going to start with a look at the old regulations. These were the SSDs that we've all used. These are the new security directives, and the safety directives look exactly the same. They're structured quite differently, and I will briefly go into the structure and jump right into the regulations. All the regulations have this introductory section that is specific for each regulation. It varies with each one, so there's a total of 22 safety regulations, 12 security regulations, so that makes it 34, if my math is right. So I'll start with the security regulations and just give you briefly what is contained in them. So we'll start with Sec 01, and the main content of Sec 01 that sets the stage for what security you will have is the facility classification. Depending on how a facility is classified, the security requirements will vary. In the old regulations that many of you are familiar with, there were two types of classifications, vital or non-vital, which meant you put all the security in or you put no security in. The new regulations are quite different. They now classify the facilities at 4 separate levels, with class 4 being the lowest and class 1 being the highest. So I'll start with class 1. What you're seeing on the screen is the criteria for classifying a facility as class 1. And very large investment is one of the criteria. Now it varies from industry to industry. Some companies, $5 million is a lot. For other companies, it's not. So examples of class 1 facilities are as shown. And this is where the highest security requirements of all are enforced. Class 2 is the next level down, and Class 1 is a very limited number of facilities. Class 2 is a much larger number of facilities, but it's medium investment. The output can be compensated for short periods. It does not affect hydrocarbon exports in a serious way, well, in a very serious way, and doesn't affect the environment or population. The examples again are shown there. The majority of industrial facilities in Saudi Arabia fall into class 3. And class 3 has we'll get briefly into what the security requirements are. Let me just go into class 4, which is basically the lowest security requirements of all. So jumping from the facility classification, which is, as I said, the basis of security, the security regulations by HCIS, we'll jump into Sec 2, which now deals with the fencing systems. In Sec 2, we have 6 different types of fencing. As you can see, category 1 through 4, the same as the classification. Category 1 fences are the highest security, category 4 are the lowest security. Sec 2 also contains all the details of how you can implement this, including how to penetrate the fence, emergency gates, clearances, and all the fine little details that define the fencing system. This slide shows a summary of how the fencing systems vary. As you can see, this is a class 1 or category 1 system. It requires 50.1 meters around your entire perimeter. Now that's a lot of space. This is only used for very high value facilities. Yes? Yeah, I will. Category 2, as you can see, requires 39.7 meters. Category 3, 23.5, and category 4, well, it's pretty simple, 10 meters. I've been told to hurry it up, so I'm going to really rush through this now. Sec 4 covers lighting, and this covers lighting in all areas. It specifies all the details of what goes on there, including the fine elements for the design. Sec 4 has some peculiar requirements, like 2 dedicated power circuits, adjacent lamps connected to different circuits. And this is to facilitate the use of for the facility operator and to support maintenance of the systems. Sec 5 is the most complicated security directive. It contains an intense level of technical detail for all the major computer systems, security systems that have to be installed at a facility. I'll briefly run through them. IDAS is intrusion detection and assessment system. ACS is access control. VASS is video assessment and surveillance system. ID management system is IDMS. And the remaining of the directive deals with the requirements for computer systems in security systems, how to integrate the systems, how to design a facility to house security equipment, the plant control room, and the SCC or Security Control Center, where all these systems are integrated. I'm going to briefly touch on the IDAS system, which provides perimeter monitoring. It's essentially a bunch of sensors along the fence line and cameras that allow you to detect an intruder and enunciate an alarm. This is an example of one of those systems. You can see the cameras and the sensors are mounted on the fence, and there's also microwave systems there. Sec 6 is probably one of the easier ones. It covers the specifications for security devices. Now that doesn't mean you're restricted to only these devices. This is what the minimum requirements are for any industrial facility that falls under HCIS's jurisdiction. So it talks about the personnel protection equipment or devices such as ballistic protection for the security personnel at gates, and security devices such as drop gates, turnstiles, crash barriers. And there's specifications on how these crash barriers and devices have to be, how they're certified and rated for a minimum level of protection. Sec 7 covers power supply. You can read what's up there. It's quite comprehensive because the intention is, under no circumstances should the security system lose power. And there's a lot of detail in there, not only for the power supply and the design, but also how to support it. Sec 8 is communications, wireless and wired. I'm not going to read all the points because I've been told to hurry up, and I guess all of you can read it. But one thing to remember here is wireless communications are a very sensitive issue. They have to be addressable radios and encrypted. And it has to have adequate coverage in your operations area. Sec 10 is security locks and keying systems. And this is all kinds of locks, door locks, padlocks, anything. And also the keying system. And now we're going to come to an overview of the safety regulations. These are the safety regulations in force right now. There's 22 of them. This is just some statistics on the safety directives. There's 22 of them, as I said, in 252 pages and 175 international references cited in that. The security directives we've already covered basically, and there's 12 security directives, 60 international references, and 252 pages total. This is a quick run-through on the complexities of how HCIS gets involved with the facility operator to approve the security concepts, design, and elements. As you can see, the workflow is quite complicated, and that's why you have to have knowledge of the security directives in order to prosecute it effectively. This is the workflow summary for fire protection. It's a little simpler than the security workflow, but again, good knowledge of the regulations is important. If you don't have it, you cannot do this properly. HCIS also covers industrial security department structures and conducts every facility operator has to submit their industrial security department structure to HCIS for approval, and we have our own methods of evaluating it. And last is human resources. Personnel employed in security departments also are vetted by HCIS for suitability and acceptability in employment in the security environment in Saudi Arabia. Now this concludes this presentation. Do I have time for a quick 5-slide presentation?